Welcome to Your Business, Your Life with Matt DiFrancesco, your personal financial technician. Whether you've had years of success in your business or just starting out, HighLift Financial can help you create a vision for your business, life, and family, and align these for generational wealth. So as they say, what happens in your life affects your business. And now, on to the show. Well, hello and welcome again to Your Business, Your Life with me, Matt DiFrancesco, and I am absolutely jacked today because I've got my very dear friend, Laura Gay. Laura Gay is the Consolidation Coach. She is M&A expert in the collision industry, and I'm sure if you're in the collision industry, everybody knows Laura. So I'm really excited to have her back on the podcast. Laura, I'm just going to jump in. Welcome to Your Business, Your Life.
Thank you so much, Matt. I am jacked as well to be here. When you invited me again, I felt like the first time was so awesome to be here, and then to be honored to come back a second time. Oh my gosh, over the top excited. I'm excited all day about it.
That's great. We're going to have to just try to reel things in so we don't go like 2 hours,
Yeah, absolutely, because we can chat it up.
Oh, we definitely can. So, hey, Laura, first off, I want to give you an opportunity because I know you've got some other things outside of just doing what you do with Consolidation Coach. So let's update the audience on some of the things that you've got going on.
Yeah, sure. So I think everybody knows that I help independent shop owners that are looking to sell and help them through the selling process if they're selling to a consolidator. But what we're working on now is we're working on a completely separate upward, which is going to help independent shop owners that are wanting to sell that might not be a perfect fit for a consolidator. What we are creating is a couple of different things. One, we're going to have a completely separate division with a completely separate team that's going to run this section of the company. And basically, they're going to focus on connecting independent buyers and independent sellers. Or maybe it's a small MSO, or maybe it's somebody that's got 1 or 2 shops looking to get 3, connect them with these independent shops that are absolutely wonderful. There's so many great independent shops out there that are looking to sell for different reasons that just aren't fit for consolidator and perfect for this scenario. So the things we're working on is a new website called Collision Classifieds. We're hoping very hard to have it released by mid-September. Everybody knows our fan favorite, Mickey Woods. She's working on development, and we literally she emailed me yesterday about one little final thing, and we hope to launch it. And we're going to do that for 6 months free. We're going to offer that service, and you can go there and you can list a body shop for sale. You can list what you're looking as far as body shops to buy. You can buy and sell equipment. If you're looking for employees or you're an employee looking for a job, you can post that, or really anything related to the collision space. There is a place for you to place an ad. So we're super excited about it. And the whole idea was to bridge the gap. And then in addition to that, if you need help once you get a deal done, or you're just trying to figure things out, that's what this second division is going to be. It's going to be, think of it as the bridge to help these independent shop owners and independent shop buyers figure out how to get the deal done. Because how many times in life do we have these great ideas to do something? We just can't figure out how to put the legs or the wheels on it to make it work. Well, that's going to be that division, and it's going to be awesome. We're super duper excited, and hopefully to have it completely off the ground within the next 30 days. So thanks, Matt, for asking about it.
Oh, no problem. Because I'm excited about it. And I think it's great to have a database there for these independent shop sellers and buyers to be able to start connecting them. And we're going to talk a little bit about this, but I think it's a market out there that's growing. There's a number of shops that want to grow via acquisition. So I think it's a great thing.
It absolutely is an untapped market, and it's kind of an evolved new market that we're seeing. There's a desperate need. I mean, we kind of started hearing about it last year at CIC in Vegas. But we're just hearing more and more about it. So I definitely think it's a need where a lot of these independents are trying to create their own brand, and this is going to be a great way to do that.
That's awesome. No, I think it's great. So I'm excited for you, and of course with Mickey. So let's just keep the hammer down and keep moving this industry forward, right?
Amen.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about the current state of the consolidation or the buyer's market. So I know, back when I had you on, man, what was that, like 2-3 years ago or something? It was like there was wild money going all over the place. What's it look like now?
Well, there was wild money then, and there's even wilder money now.
Okay. All right.
So I think what's happened is a lot of people have figured out that, hey, there's a lot of money to be made in this industry, consolidating shops, and either whether they want to buy some shops and then sell them, quickly, they want to flip them quickly, or maybe they're trying to build their own empire. There's a lot of different people doing different things, but there's a lot more private equity folks out here that are flying under the radar that many don't even know about. There's some that are super aggressive that are growing like crazy. And there's ones that are doing it regionally, nationally. It's really incredible to see that whole segment start to, I don't want to say start to develop because it's been developing, but maybe to take off and really go speed up, like at lightning speed, to be honest.
Really? Wow, that's crazy. So who are some of the players in the market? I mean, everybody knows about the big boys, your Calibers, your Gerbers, your Joe Hudsons. Are they the only players in the market?
Oh, absolutely not. Honestly, and I think we kind of all know this, but I think it's fair to talk about it. At some point, the consolidators are going to become, where they've developed what they want to do. So, for example, Caliber and Gerber, for example, they want to be national, right? We know this. They're trying to grow and evolve in every market nationally. At some point, they're going to have that task done, right?
Right.
And when that task is done, then they're not going to really be buying shops that much more. And I think that maybe, some of the larger consolidators are starting to get that way. They're starting to look at doing what's called greenfielding and brownfielding. Greenfielding is where they build a brand new purpose-built building. Brownfielding is where they find like an old Toys R Us building, Toys R Us like that's vacant or something like that, a big store, a big box, and then they, develop it to work for them. So again, like I said, I think that, we have some evolvement that's starting to happen. And as that happens, some of those bigger people are not going to be as aggressively buying shops, while the middle market or the tier 2 buyers and tier 3 buyers are becoming much more aggressive.
Right.
At shops, as they're trying to develop. So I think, again, it's just a little bit of a market shift, if you will.
Yeah. So when you talk about tier 2 and tier 3, can you kind of explain what that means, like, or what kind of buyers those are?
Sure. So, it's like anything, size matters, right?
That's right.
So if you think about, tier 1, that's the big boys, that's Caliber, that's Gerber, Crash Champions, Classic, Joe Hudson Collision Center. And I'm sure there's a few others that I'm leaving out, but that we'll call them the big boys. Everybody knows the name, or anybody that's in the collision industry knows the names, right?
Right.
And then when you're talking tier 2, you're talking the people like Collision Right, Quality Collision Group, that are more methodical with a growing Vive. They're a good example.
Right.
All of those guys are growing like crazy, and they're very methodical about what they're doing. And eventually they're going to grow to the point, where they're going to be 500, 600, 700 shops. I'm guessing. Again, I don't have a crystal ball and I don't work for them. I can only tell you what I see and what I, extract from what I'm seeing. But those guys are kind of what I call the tier 2 buyers. And then the tier 3 buyers are the much smaller guys, maybe a regional that's trying to develop, or some of these private equities that maybe only have 5 or 10 locations. I kind of think of it as locations. If you've got, more than 50, well, we'll go even with that, more than 30 locations, you're probably a tier 2. If you're less than 30, you're probably a tier 1. I think that's a good way to look at it. Again, this is just my model on how I look at things. I don't think this is anything that anybody particularly calls it, but that's how I kind of quantify and make sense of all of what's going on, kind of figuring a bucket that everybody falls in. And then that helps me manage and understand what's going on in the industry.
Okay. No, it makes complete sense. All over the country, are you starting to see some of this consolidation become more regionalized? And maybe it's just by buyer too.
I think it's by buyer, and some buyers are super aggressive. So ironically, I'm originally from Maryland and I live in Florida now. Those, in my opinion, are probably the 2 hottest markets right now. They're absolutely nuts. So if you're in those 2 markets and you're looking to sell, I mean, I can't think of a better time to sell. It's kind of crazy because, like I said, it's in my backyard, if you will.
Yeah.
And then there's plenty of other markets all over the United States, that are bustling, and it depends on buyer. Think of it like this, the buyers, they are strategic, right? They can't buy a shop in California, New York, and Texas and manage that, right? It's just impossible. So that most of these buyers, again, are very strategic about what they're doing. So, for example, Vive is a great example of this. Up and down the East Coast, from all the way up north, the coastline, all the way down, and they're just starting to enter Maryland and wanting to enter Virginia. That's their, what do you call it? Their wheelhouse. They're never going to buy something in Texas. They're never going to buy something in Washington State. They're going to be staying over there on that side of the United States. You know what I mean?
Right.
Again, it's all strategic. And the old saying, the more buyers that are out there buying in a particular region, obviously that's going to drive the value of the shop, or what ultimately the return is, or the sale price of the shop is going to be.
Right. And it's interesting. And this is, I guess, what I preach to a lot of my clients, because I get a number of them that come to me and said, oh, Vive or Caliber or Gerber, oh, they've come to me and we're going to have lunch and talk about these things. And the one thing I always tell them is, I'm telling you, don't do this yourself. Don't do it yourself, because you're going to leave money on the table. You need to hire a professional to do this. And I'm going to give you an opportunity for a shameless plug here, but I mean, explain why it's not to their benefit to try to negotiate this themselves.
So I'm just going to put it out there. I don't care if you use me, you use somebody else.
Right.
I don't care who you use, but I do think it's important that you do use somebody to help you through the process. And
Right.
I'll explain why. So if you had a brand new Mercedes, S550 or whatever the model is now, the big body Mercedes, and you had one of those and it got wrecked, okay? Or even a Tesla, that's even better example, and it gets wrecked and it needs a quarter panel. Well, the only person that can provide a part for that Tesla that on a weld on is going to be a Tesla certified shop.
Right.
It's kind of the same thing. And they're the ones that know how to fix that car. They work on that car all the time.
Right.
If you go and you try to sell your shop yourself, you just can't possibly be prepared. I personally took 6 months and stepped back and learned everything I thought possibly, like every bullet that could come at me. I felt like I was fully prepared, and I made tons of mistakes. So I think that fast forward, if you're thinking about selling, there's so many facets of the selling process. There's just no way that you could possibly put on the armor and be ready for war, because ultimately that's what it is. Just like you're dealing with these insurance companies, and when you're dealing with an insurance company, I don't want to say what to expect, but that they've got their fancy word tracks that they tell customers. You kind of know their MO. They're professionals at what they do, right? Well, the consolidators are professionals at buying shops. They're
Right.
sophisticated. Sellers are not sophisticated because they don't do this every day.
Right.
I think that's the biggest thing, is there's so many nuances, so many facets of selling, so many things. And I tell you what, if we got a hot second, I want to share one example of this.
There you go. You got it.
So on Friday at about 4:00, heels of the holiday weekend, I get a frantic call from a client. We had been waiting on a list of things that the buyer wanted repaired at one of his stores.
Okay.
And we got the list. And for my buyer, it was catastrophic. He was hysterical. And I spoke to my buyer and I explained to him, hey, this is something that happens all the time.
Yeah.
Don't worry, we will get past this. And really all it was a situation where the buyer was asking for a list of things to be addressed or at least discussed. And at the end of the day, once we got through the list, it was no longer a problem. It wasn't even a speed bump. It wasn't even a cough. It was nothing. It was a complete non-issue. But again, if you don't know, you don't know. It's one of those, it's no different than anything else in life. And like I said, I love to help as many people as I can, but in the same light, consider getting someone to help you no matter what.
I drink that Kool-Aid, and I bring Laura in a lot of my cases if we are looking at third-party sales, and even if we're looking at where the owner's not sure what to do. I'm a big proponent of doing plan A, plan B, and you've always got to have that backup plan in case plan A, whether that's a family transfer or an insider transfer, blows up. You got to have a backup plan. So I think it's really important. And I personally, I don't do what Laura does. So I'm going to bring the best of the best in all these situations. So,
yeah. And likewise, Matt, same with me. I don't do what you do. So when I
right.
have clients that get a big pile of money, I'd hate for them to get the money and it be gone. And I've seen that happen where people get a big pile of money and it doesn't get managed right and then it's gone. So that knife cuts both ways. I mean, just as much as you get this big pile of money, you got to know what to do with it so you can make it last.
That's correct. And the other thing is too, and I don't know if a lot of shop owners are aware of this, but the tax implications of a sale. Deals have to be structured properly to minimize the tax, because anytime there's transaction between two people, the tax is going to be paid somewhere. So one side's trying to minimize it on its side, the other one's trying to minimize it on their side. And so, you want to speak a little bit about how you need to structure these sales to make sure that you're not paying too much to Uncle Sam.
Yeah, absolutely. So I preface this with, I am not a CPA.
That's right.
I'm not a tax consultant. I'm none of that. I just do enough of this to be dangerous and to know how this is going to affect a seller. So if you're an S Corp, in my opinion, and from my experience, from what I've seen, that is the best possible tax structure that you can be if you're selling to a consolidator. Right. Consolidator sales are always going to be an asset purchase. That's all we ever see. When the asset purchase methodology is applied to a sale, the taxes, and I want to make sure I say this properly because I'm not a CPA and I don't want to stumble on myself, but the way the taxes are assessed is through what's called an allocation process. Mm-hmm. And just like you negotiate the sale price of the business and the lease terms and every other part of the deal, the allocations are yet another part we have to negotiate, and we do that on your behalf. Right. And we're really good at it. Yeah. And we're really good at getting what's favorable. And we know what is favorable, and we always will run it through your accountant to make sure that your accountant is on board with what we're thinking. And if your accountant isn't, then we will, of course, do whatever your accountant thinks. And or we can connect you with one of the tax consultants that we work with. And the reason that we work with these tax consultants is there's some shops, and quite a few lately, that are C corporations. Mm-hmm. If you take one thing away from this discussion, this podcast today, is if you are a C corporation, put a seatbelt on because you're heading for a crash if you're selling. It is very complex. Yeah. There's double taxation on those, and there's ways around it. Mm-hmm. I do not know those ways. I can't even begin to explain it, but we have people on our team that can help with that part of it. And you can get in a position where, you sell your business and you think you're getting $2 million. And then by the time you've paid the tax, if you're a C Corp, you're ending up with, $400,000, $500,000 mm-hmm. and completely what your life could, what you imagined your life and what your life is. And that's something that we try to make sure customers know before we even go to market. We want to make sure that they understand what their net life is going to look like 6 months from now, once the dust settles, because you can sell the shop and you can get $2 million or $3 million or $5 million. But what really matters is what you have when it's all said and done, when the dust is settled, when all the bills are paid, when the taxes are paid, when all that is done. That is really what matters at the end of the day, and how you're going to live, because you don't want to sell your shop and then have to go be a Walmart greeter, right?
Right. Exactly. And that's why you want to plan beforehand before you even decide I'm going to market. Look at what you want your lifestyle to look like. What kind of income are you going to need? What's the value of the business? What do you have in personal assets? Is there a gap? And then we've got to figure out how we close that gap. And I just want to say, I agree with you. If you're selling third party, S Corp is great. C Corps do fit a role, especially if you're looking at doing an insider transfer, family transfers. You can do some great gifting strategies. If you want to do an employee purchase, they can be good too, but it's not a one size fits all for any shop. And if you're kind of on the borderline, like I'm not sure if we're going to go third party or internal, probably best just to say yes at this point.
Yeah. And Matt, I'm glad you brought that up about the family transfer and the stock options, because that absolutely, we've got another client that Matt and I together have been working with, and he's a C Corp, and it's been very beneficial to him. Also, if you're thinking about doing an ESOP, if I understand from some of the stuff we've done, that's also positive. Am I right, Matt?
ESOPs can be. And it's actually, there's a client that Laura and I have been working with. She actually sent him over my way, who's interested in ESOP. Didn't really fit the ESOP model, but what we're looking at is doing the C Corp and putting an employee stock purchase program, whether it's a a stock appreciation program or just, a phantom stock program. And that can be very efficiently done, especially from a tax situation with the C Corp. So again, it's not a one size fits all. Everybody's got a little different situation. So now we're going to bring out the crystal ball here, the magic 8 ball. All right. Neither one of us have this. So again, I'll give our disclaimer here too. Of course, none of us know what the future is going to look like. And if we did, both Laura and I would be on a beach with umbrellas in our drink, right?
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
but again, things are going really good right now. I mean, consolidators are looking, but let's say we got a shop owner, um, fairly young, maybe isn't even thinking about transition for 5 or 10 years. What do you think the market's going to possibly look like in those days? Because they may be saying, well, I want to keep the shop and I want to keep running it, but I hate to leave money on the table. Are my hands going to be tied if I wait that long? So just want to kind of get your feedback on what you think the market might look like in, let's say, 5 years.
Well, again, I don't have a crystal
Right.
ball, but I think that as a rule, we've been kind of seeing this kind of what I'm going to call divide,
Mhm.
where we have the independent shop owners that are very forward thinking and understanding profitability and understanding business and getting more education in their toolbox, if you will. And those shop owners are changing their business model. And a lot of them are going to a balanced billing model where, the insurance company pays $5,000 to fix the car, and maybe the real cost to repair the car is $6,500 and the client pays the difference.
Right.
I think that's going to continue to go, very much like concierge medical has, taken off over, the last 5 years, especially here in Naples, where I live, Naples, Florida. I think there's probably 20 concierge doctors right here in this little tiny town. And I think that, it's the same methodology if you think about it.
Right.
If the insurance company's not going to pay for it, you just paying a little bit extra to get what you need, if that makes sense, right?
Right.
And have it fixed right. And consequently, I think the consolidators are more of DRP centric. They're going to follow what the insurance company says. And I think that's the direction of that. So consequently, I think what's going to happen with the consolidators is as time goes on, they're going to have their markets, are going to become more established or developed, if you will, and Caliber's almost there. And I know Gerber's working, to get to that point. They're the two biggest at this point, and Crash Champions is right there on their heels. So I think as those three continue to, fill in those holes, at some point, those holes are going to be filled in. And it's hard to say if that's going to be 3 years or 5 years. So I'd say in like the next 3 to 5 years, I would think that those holes will be filled in by the big fish, right?
Right.
And then what we're going to have left is, the medium fish and the small fish, the tier 2 and the tier 3. And maybe there'll be a few tier 1s left, that are still going to be buying. So, I think it just comes down to demand. And I think that's another important part to understand, the big difference between value and what you can get for your shop.
Mhm.
On paper, the business may only show a value of, $2 million, but maybe you can get 2.5 million on it because of the market or the demand, or maybe you can get 3 million because of the market or the demand. Is that market or demand going to exist in 3 to 5 years? I don't think so. But again, I don't have a crystal ball, and a lot of things can change. And I also think that these regional MSOs are going to continue to grow. And a lot of those guys, are in Mike Anderson's people. Tim Papp, who's a real good friend of mine. I know that's something that he's working on, is, kind of developing his own brand. And there's a lot of folks in his group that are doing that. And kudos to them, because America needs them.
Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's no doubt. And
Yeah.
actually, it's interesting. I've got two guys I've been doing some work with who are finance guys that got involved in collision repair, and their goal to grow is through acquisition. And I think really, again, if you're 5 to 10 years, 5, 7, 10 years out, I think one of the best things that you can do is work to increase your free cash flow, because again, you increase that adjusted EBITDA, that becomes more appealing even to finance people who understand numbers. Those are going to be the shops that are going to be appealing to them. So, one of the things I preach a lot is building value in the business. Do the things necessary to increase the value of the business so that down the road, you're going to get the best multiple that you can possibly get out of it.
Yeah, I agree with that too. I think as time goes on, right now, there's a lot of shops that have zero profits or very little profits, and we're able to sell those shops at very good premiums. That's the market we're in right now. But
Right
I think
now, yeah.
as time goes on, that's probably not going to be a thing. If you're not showing profits, and the way that we get around that is that, either us or the consolidator is creating a pro forma of what they're going to be able to do once they take control or ownership of the facility. But again, I think that's probably going to go by the wayside as time goes on. It's kind of like a hurricane's coming and you need a generator, or snowstorm's coming and you need a generator. Well, that generator was $1,500 a week ago at Home Depot. Well, now it's $3,500 on the side of the road and the dude wants cash money. It's supply and demand.
I think you're exactly right. And so again, I think, no matter what position you're in, if you're like, hey, I'm ready to get out, definitely you need to get in touch with Laura. If you're saying, I'm not sure, I'm 5, 6 years away, I think that's really important, where we work with somebody that can help you to build value in your business. And value is not just about just the operational side, but it's also making sure that the business is not as dependent on you as it currently is. I mean, the more dependent a shop is on the owner, that actually drives the value down of it. So I'm doing a lot of work with a number of clients on creating less owner dependency, and even to a certain extent becoming absentee owners, where they've got this cash cow that's funneling cash to them, but they don't have to be there every day. And so,
Yeah.
I think you've got to look at it both ways. And so, Laura, any closing thoughts before because I know you and I we could go on and on. So I do want to keep this for the listeners, that it's at least digestible.
Well, I just want to add one thing to your comment just now
Sure.
about owner dependence. It's funny because a lot of shop owners, when we're selling, they say to me, "Oh, I do this. I'm here every day and I work 70 hours a week." And when I hear that, I'm like, "Oh, Lord." I had to have a conversation with them about, and a lot of our owners we work with for years. I've got a client right now that I've been working with for 2.5 years, helping him develop things
Wow.
and things more what I'll call palatable, meaning what the buyers are going to want so he could get more money because he had a really, really nice shop. But honestly, the more that you as an owner is involved, the less desirable the shop is. I know that sounds like confusing, but it really is. And honestly, when I sold my stores, I thought the same thing. Like, oh my gosh, this is my brand. This is me. They need to know how much I'm involved. If anything, it was counterproductive, and it still is counterproductive.
Oh, exactly. I tell a lot of owners this, especially that are around my age. We baby boomers, we wear that 60, 70, 80 hours a week as a badge of honor. And it's like, yes. But then they're wondering why their kids aren't interested in the business. And I'm like, because that's not how they think. Okay.
Yeah, you're 100% badge of honor. That is such a good, I can't think of a better way to explain it. Badge of honor.
That's
100%.
right. Yeah, and so we do that, and I try to explain to them. I said, younger people, and you're wondering why your key employees or your kids aren't interested in the business. It's not that they don't want to work that hard, but they don't want to be to have the business completely dependent on them. They have other things that they want to do and that they value, and that's okay. And you know what? Any owner can get there if they want to. And I think no matter what you do, and I didn't mean this to get onto an owner owner dependency conversation, but no matter what you do, the less dependent you make the shop, it's going to benefit you if you're doing internal transitions or if you're going to go sell to a third party. So I think that's something that every shop owner should learn. So Laura, I just love having you on. You and I, we just kind of go off. It's luckily we didn't have a couple drinks here while we.
Yeah, we
Then it could
definitely
have got.
are like peanut butter and jelly for sure.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. But, again, if you're looking to sell, we're going to have all of Laura's contact information in the show notes. Also, if you're just not sure, maybe just contact me. You can go to my website, highlifefinancial.com, click on the Let's Talk. I give everybody 30 minutes of my time just to kind of see where they are. And really, if we're looking at third party, and I've done this many times with Laura, I'll send them over to Laura and say, look, Laura, let's bring you in the conversation to just kind of give them an idea what their options are. One of the things a lot of times I have Laura do is do evaluation on the business, because that's going to give us accurate numbers to see, do we have a gap? Is now the time? Do we need to build some more value in the business? Do we need to make it less dependent on the shop owner? So either one of us is more than happy to give you some of our time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do the same thing. I do free consultations as well. So thanks for
Exactly.
mentioning that, Matt.
Oh, that's no problem. So Laura, again, thank you so much for being on here. It's a blast. Also, if any shop owners, Laura and I are hosts along with Mickey Woods, Barrett Smith, Clay Hobright, and Rick Sellover of the Collision Cocktail Hour, which is at the third Wednesday of every month at 8 o'clock Eastern. We get about anywhere from probably 30 to 60 shop owners on this every month. Usually it's kind of an open forum discussion where sometimes we'll bring a topic to the table and we'll have discussions about that. Sometimes we just say, hey, what do you guys want to talk about? And somebody will bring, something to the table. And I'll tell you what, the response that we've gotten has been phenomenal over 2 years running now, right, Laura?
Yeah. And I think what's awesome about it is it's just shop owners kind of coming together, supporting one another, and talking about real world problems that are happening today in your shop, and having these, 60, 70 minds that get on there, come together with some real world solutions. And sometimes the answer or solution can be right here, and you just don't see it.
Right.
And that's what's great about this. You can come on there and share what's going on. And like Matt said, sometimes it's structured, sometimes it's not. We'd love to see you.
Yeah, it's awesome. And I'll tell you what, we've really built a community. And I think that's probably the biggest thing that the shop owners like. I mean, it's funny going to shows and everybody's like, hey, I know you, I know you.
Yes, it is. It is. It's awesome. And again, it's not something that we get paid for.
Nope.
It's not something that we're doing it for any monetization or anything. It's something that all the co-hosts did. We got together and we wanted to provide a forum to help shop owners and support shop owners, because let's face it, most of the shop owners that need help don't have the monetization to get the help. And that was the whole reason we got together. And I have to say, this was Matt's brainchild. Kudos to Matt for, coming up with the brainchild. I mean, it's been awesome and it's helped so many.
No problem. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the kudos there. So, and Laura, thank you for being on the show. Last thanks goes to you, the audience. Thank you for being on Your Business, Your Life with me, Matt DiFrancesco. If you have not subscribed to the podcast, please click the subscribe button below. That way, when a new episode comes down, it's going to drop right to your device. You're going to get to hear great people like Laura and Mickey Woods and all the great people, great guests that I've had on the show. And also, if you're watching on YouTube, if you're listening through iTunes, Spotify, Anchor, whatever platform you're listening for, and you like what you hear, please give us a 5-star review. That way we'll move up the charts and we can get all these great guests out to many more people. So Laura, again, thank you so much. I love having you on again. And I know we'll probably end up doing this again real soon.
Awesome. Thanks again, Matt. I really do appreciate it. I hope you have a great day. And thank you to the audience.
No, too. Okay. And thanks to the audience. And we'll see you next time. Take care and God bless. Hey, I really want to thank you for listening to the Your Business, Your Life podcast. If you want to be notified when new episodes become available, click the subscribe button below.